We did an episode with just me and Lunga not that long ago called the worst episode in Chatooine history. And I
We're
think
trying to top
part
it.
2, is out now. This one's going to be even worse because, oh my God, I still don't care about Bad Batch. This was such a last minute topic change because the trailer
Let's talk
came
about
out 2 days ago.
Let's talk about a 2-minute trailer for an hour.
Yeah. There's so much excitement for the Bad
of a show
Batch.
we don't even care about. The most exciting thing about this is it's the end. That's the most exciting thing.
Oh my God. It's so funny seeing people online like so into the Bad Batch and they're like,
yeah,
this is so huge. And oh my God, it might be better than Clone Wars and all that. It's like,
they're treating this like season 7 of Clone Wars. It's like, bro, what are you talking about?
And it can't be one of those things like Resistance where it's like, okay, maybe I should take your word for it because I haven't seen it. No, I've seen Bad Batch seasons 1 and 2, and honestly, even with the trailer dropping, I was just like, finally, it's coming to an end. So, according to the official Star Wars website, they say we now have our first look at the Bad Batch's last mission. The long-awaited trailer for Star Wars Bad Batch Season 3 has arrived. See, long-awaited. I don't know who the fuck was
long-awaited.
Offering a glimpse at what's in store for our favorite elite clone squad. In addition to the Batchers now scattered following the events of Season 2, the trailer includes some new creatures and familiar faces, including Wanda Sykes, Fee, whatever the hell her name is, and ends with the shocking appearance of the favorite Sith apprentice turned free agent Asajj Ventress. And honestly, I think that alone is the biggest thing about this trailer. There isn't. Do you remember any other part of the trailer other than Asajj Ventress? I can't say.
Yes. Actually, I do. I will say this: as much as I really don't care about the Clone War or Bad Batch that much, it looks like this season's actually going to be pretty serious.
It looks more focused.
Focused, yeah, that's the word I want to say, because there were serious episodes in the other 2 seasons, but again, it was so scatterbrained and to say, hey, we got another mission from Sid. Omega's up to her fucking shit again. Oh, look, she's jumping out of the ship when she shouldn't be. But this one seems a little, I guess I want to say, focused and darker, right? Which makes sense with this being the first year of the Empire, right? And solidifying their power. We got that mysterious X-Trooper, right? Which is supposed to be some kind.
With that design.
Yeah, it looks like Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. But they said about in season 1 they found that Wanda was dead as they were assassins or something or some kind of thing. And the more I look at it, even though Merrick was nothing but a cloud of green gas, it kind of reminds me of Merrick's armor, doesn't it? If you think about it from Ahsoka.
Yeah, I could actually see that. Yeah, we should have pulled up some pictures for some of this stuff, but
yeah,
no one cares about
I mean, you can still find them if you find them. We can pop them up still. But yeah, so there's that. Omega's obviously older, her hair's longer, and she's living at that facility on Mount Tantus. Tantus, that's what it's called, right? Mount Tantus.
I have no. I don't even remember the planet that Echo and Crosshair are on anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the planet that it was in the Heir of the Empire series originally with Thrawn and stuff. The
clone facility that they're holding her at.
Right. So she's kind of there as a hostage, if you will, because Nala say, she said, I want her back if you want me to do this work. So she's kind of just there with her, and you could see she has like the patches on and stuff. So she's actually kind of like she wasn't in Camino. She has her she can walk around the facility, you know what I mean? And she's kind of, I guess, like kind of Nalase's assistant while she's there. So there's that. We do see Asajj Ventress, which is a big deal. I think there was a shot of Fennec Shand as well. The bounty hunters, Cad Bane. I did
see Cad Bane. I didn't see Fennec.
Yeah, so they're kind of roping them back in into this final season. And I don't know if you can really call them a squad when it's pretty much Wrecker and Hunter. You know what I mean?
That's another thing that really caught my eye. And there's I think with most group stories, you think of like Lord of the Rings. You start off with the 9 Fellowship, and the entire trilogy is about them splitting up and then at the end coming back together and everything.
Yeah.
But one of the things that the first movie did really well is it felt like you were actually losing something when they did split up. I mean, that's one of my big like what ifs is I'm like, oh, I as a audience, I would have loved to have seen the Fellowship stay together, all 9 of them go to Mordor and everything like that. That's interesting. I don't have the same feeling with the Bad Batch though. Kind of like with the characters in the sequel trilogy, Ray, Finn, and Poe, they weren't together for the first 2 episodes. So in episode 9, when they, all were teaming up, it was like, oh, I don't really feel the connection of them being together, not being together. I feel the same way with Bad Batch. We're on season 3. The squad's not really together, but I don't have that feeling of, oh man, don't you miss season 1 when it was everybody together and all that stuff?
Yeah.
You don't have those deep connections with these characters yet, but they are. I think
I
they're going
mean,
to try to hone that in this one.
yeah, you're obviously going to see redemption of Crosshair, right? He's a prisoner there now.
Oh yeah,
So you're going to see that.
Yeah.
Do you want me to be perfectly honest with you? This has got to be like a Rogue One, with the exception of Rex, because we know, he's around. And hopefully they kind of tease it in there. He's like, I didn't think we'd be still worrying about losing more of our brothers. I think they all need to die. I think they all need to die.
Oh yeah,
all of them,
yeah,
including Omega. Omega.
I know you would say that. I knew you
would. I mean, I can't stand Omega, but it's not because of that. I'm just saying, if you want this story to have any kind of meaning, you know what I mean? I think you need them all to die.
I'm in the same boat.
Of the season. And Rex is the only one that remembers them. You know what I mean? Because Rex is the one key to everything when it comes to clones, is when we get into.
Well, and it would also be very symbolic, I think, for the entire series, because I it's weird looking back at seasons 1 and 2 and trying to think which is better. But I will kind of say season 1 because of the first couple episodes, that like hour-long thing they did, and then not the very last one, but the second to the last one, where they start destroying Camino, and you see the empty barracks and all that stuff, and the cafeteria that all the clones were eating at. It really did feel like the end of an era, and I think season 3 needs to enunciate that a lot with the death of all the Bad Batch, because that really would be the end. It's like not just the clones are not relevant anymore and they're fading out. It's like, no, they're dead, they're dying. Like, this is the end of the clones as we know it. The Clone Wars is going to become forgotten about. It is the dawn of the new empire, and we saw a little bit more of that in season 2, of course, and Crosshair kind of having his issues with that and seeing the clones being kind of phased out. This needs to be the death of them now, where the clones are just no longer useful to the empire, and I'm really excited to see that aspect of it.
With the exception of like these assassins, right? Because the one thing we've noticed in this trailer too, everything they're fighting now, if you notice, they're all full-fledged stormtroopers now. They are commissioned stormtroopers. They're not fighting any clones anymore, which I think they're going to start turning off their stuff from stun to kill finally. Maybe we'll start actually see them shooting things, not just stunning everything, because they didn't want to kill any of their brothers. Remember? So they were just stunning everyone.
If my brother wants to kill me, I'm sorry. It's you or me, buddy.
Well, they feel bad for him. They are, brainwashed, and shit, and all that other good stuff. We did get Palpatine, and he was actually walking with Nalase and them. So, and just like we all kind of, I'm not going to sit here and act like I was like prophetic, because everyone kind of figured this. If you were paying attention at all, that this whole thing with Dr. Hemlock and all this cloning stuff that they're doing here with Omega and all the other clones, that this is all leading towards somehow Palpatine returned. This is what, and it's going to tie into the whole Grogu as well somehow, right? Eventually, that he's part of this whole deal as well. That's why he was held on to, or why they were trying to get him, or they're trying to reestablish the program that they were doing prior. You know what I mean? So that's, you could see that coming. And it is Ian McDermott voicing him for this too. So I
heard that, and I also think after with what they did with season 2 of the like surprise appearance of Palpatine, it is kind of nice to see him actively involved in this like program. And he says something along the lines of like, "There's nothing more important to secure the future of this empire," and that's a big speculation thing. Because a lot of us now looking at this, especially with knowing what happens with the Rise of Skywalker, it seems like this cloning stuff, which we all suspected, is tied into Palpatine, is tied into Snoke, and him wanting to clone himself and other beings to live forever,
And we know, obviously, secure the future of the Empire means securing my future, my immortality, because that's the tie from the prequels, right? being able
Yeah.
to believing Plagueis led the key to learning, to immortality, and he's trying to figure it out, and they're due to his way of doing it, and this and that. So this is all tying into it. Which is kind of funny because they haven't mentioned, because again, we've always, you, me, and Connor have always brought up the Plagueis novel because it's so good. And
it's amazing.
Tenebris was basically doing something, cloning something like this. It was all scientific, right? Not alchemy, dark alchemy.
Well, Tenebris was he was able to do the essence transfer.
Yeah,
and he almost got Plagueis with that. Plagueis was and it's crazy we're even talking about him, because the past couple weeks I've actually been rereading a little bit of the book and parts that I like. And Plagueis is probably one of the Sith that is most knowledgeable about the biology and science of the Force. So it's kind of cool to see Palpatine do similar things with that, but it also doesn't delve in the mythical and Force aspects that Plagueis does. Like we don't really see the grand picture from Palpatine's point of view in this. It's mostly just his subordinates, which is just an odd kind of choice to make, because I would like to see in this case with him talking about the significance of this cloning program, not just, oh, it's a big deal, but why when it comes to the Force. Like even if he's talking to himself or Vader, get a little bit more into that, because that would make it more interesting and more akin to what Plagueis and Tenebris were trying to do before Palpatine.
Yeah. And again, if you look at it, it's like, because Palpatine saw the failure, because he got all of Plagueis's, because Plagueis was like the Nazis. He kept records of everything. He had his warehouse with all his records and everything. So, and Plagueis kept all the stuff that Tenebris was doing. So he had a record of everything Palpatine knew that Tenebris was doing that transfer thing, which is like, it wasn't cloning, but it was basically taking your essence and putting it inside of another Force body, and it kept having failures. It wasn't working right. So I think his thing obviously is, well, how about we cultivate a body that's made for this, and that's the cloning aspect comes into it. And then he has his failures with it, right? And Snoke is probably one of them, and this and that, blah blah blah. And then it gets to what happens in the sequels. So I could see the ties, right? Where it's all kind of linking together. And as much as we say we keep saying we can't keep having these stories set during the original trilogy, during the between the prequel and the original trilogy, whatever, and all this stuff. It's like, if you really want the full scope of this, you're gonna kind of have to do more stories during the original trilogy. You know what I mean?
That's wrap it up at some point too, and I think that's what they're doing here. I think this is kind of all right. We've done a lot of the original trilogy, but mostly between episodes 3 and 4, that 19-year gap. This takes place in that. I mean, they've really milked that era, and it's kind of about time to bring that to an end, I think. And as much as the show, I don't think is a great show to end that era, it is nice the way they've approached it, at least from the clone aspect of it. Like Rebels did it for kind of the Jedi and everything like that, and that feeling of what the original trilogy was, and trying to capture that a little bit before the original trilogy. This is trying to in the prequel trilogy era as a whole. Everything involved the Clone Wars, everything involved with Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan, but all mixed into the clones and what they have an impact on. So it is kind of nice that they're trying to wrap all that up. It always just goes back to the execution. That's the biggest thing I think that harps the Bad Batch and hinders it from being a really big series is the characters. I mean, the Bad Batch, those characters themselves really aren't all that interesting, and neither is the lead, Omega. And this is supposed to be like a huge deal. It's season 3, it's coming to an end. And I do think this season's going to have a lot more interest from the fans than the past 2 seasons. But for the most part, I think, like you, I'm just ready for this to be over. Like, tell me what. Like,
seriously,
it hasn't said anything. It hasn't said anything or done anything that made me go, "Oh my!" Like, there's a lot of people who talk about Star Wars animation. They're like, "Star Wars animation is peak," and they use this, and it's like, dude, the animation is great because the quality of Lucasfilm animation has gotten better year after year, and that's commendable. But when it comes to the story that this is telling, I'm still at a loss, man. Like I'm still just kind of sitting here going, get to the point. Just get to the point. And I think, like we said earlier, this season 3, the final season, is going to be a lot more focused. But on what? Is it the characters? Is it the cloning aspect?
I mean, it is a character. Here's the thing. We know it's a character-driven story, right? It's not a plot-driven story. Yeah. So it's going to focus on the characters. And that's going to be the main focus of the show. And in the backdrop, we're going to get these tidbits. And I'm going to be honest, even though I said it's nice, they're trying to tie it together, it's not going to be enough. I know that. It's not. That's why I said we need more. They're going to have to do more stories during the original trilogy if they really want to flesh out Palpatine's plan for this whole thing. Because this is not going to be enough. It's going to give you little tidbits, and we can't get all of it in the Mandalorian time because that's after, it's yes, that's leading up to the sequels. You know what I mean? But the plans originated during the original trilogy. So we
got to see the groundwork,
right? So we need to see when that happened, and so that's my thing. And like I said, the big part of it's going to be Omega is going to be tougher, right? She's gonna be like more resolved because she's a prisoner again and this and that. And Hunter's obsessed with getting her back, and Wrecker, of course, is the faithful, puppy that's with them that's gonna do it. And Crosshair is gonna be, have a redemption arc. He's gonna realize what he did was wrong. He's probably gonna be the one to help Omega get out of there. And Wrecker and Hunter are out there, and they all, reconvene and find out Tech's dead. Oh no, Tech's dead. Oh, we gotta bring Echo back for a couple episodes because he's, Mr. Rebel now. And you're gonna have Rex in the middle of all of it. That's gonna tie it all together to be the soul of it, because he's the one who perseveres after everything happens. You know what I mean? We see everything through his eyes once we get the Rebels. So it is gonna center on that. And unfortunately, I think a lot of this other stuff that might be interesting to us is not gonna be as prominent as we'd hoped.
Oh God, no. It's the problem with these series, like Rebels, like Bad Batches, the story that you're interested in is like plot C. Even though it's the main plot of the series, if there's 16 episodes in this new season, 4 of them are going to be about the stuff you actually want to see. The other 8 are just going to, or not even 8, 12 are going to be absolutely nothing. And that's my big concern with this. And even with Omega, I do not want to hear her little accent back already. Like I'm just watching season 2 a couple months ago, having to hear, Anta, I found Crosshair. You gotta get Echo, Teak, get there. What'd you say, Omega? Teak. Shut the fuck up, all right?
Yeah.
Speak English, please. I don't know, man. I'm so not excited. I feel so bad. This is such like a arrow in the knee kind of thing where it's like I gotta get through it. I have to get through it.
Yeah, because there's gonna be some tidbits I'm gonna like. That's the thing, and I'm gonna sit through again. I mean, are we gonna have 16 fucking episodes again? I'm gonna sit through 16 episodes and only care about 3, maybe. That's what's gonna happen.
And y'all already know
as usual.
16 Chatooine episodes.
Oh yeah, 16 Chatooine episodes. That's not happening.
Every single Bad Batch episode is going to be a Chatooine episode. That's same.
Definitely not happening. Not under my watch, guys.
As long as I have a say, Bad Batch can stay away. But that is exactly. I'm curious about how we're going to do that too, honestly, because they premiere on Wednesday nights, which I didn't think was the thing. I thought it was always Tuesdays, was it not for most Star Wars shows?
No, I think it was once. I think it was Wednesday for Bad Batch. I think it was Wednesdays. It was
really?
Wednesdays.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But I mean, we kind of talked about it. We'll obviously cover it, talk about it, but we'll do it in bunches, 3 or 4, like 4, maybe 4 episode arcs, and talk about what happened in those 4 episodes. So we'll do 3 or 4 episodes throughout the whole run.
Yeah, and it does look like that would work out perfectly because like the 21st, February 21st, it's when the series is actually or the season is debuting, and it's going to be 3 episodes at once. So like maybe that Wednesday night, if it debuts early enough where we can all watch it and then react to it on here, we can do that. But they're doing like 2 episode nights for like March 13th, they're having 2 episodes drop, episode 6 and episode 7. April 3rd, they're doing 2 episodes. And then, of course, May 1st is the
but are they doing that thing where, like, early in the morning we can access it, or you got to wait until, like, 7 o'clock at night, like with Ahsoka and shit like that? Because with Ahsoka, we had to wait until the evening to watch the episode.
Ahsoka was a night thing, too. Damn.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Bad Batch, I remember watching Bad Batch at, like, 6 a.m. in the morning. So I think it drops in the morning.
Especially when it first came out, I know that was a morning thing, the premiere of it. So I hope it's the same thing with this. So you guys who are watching can watch it in the morning, and then at night we can all react to it together and everything like that. Because that would be cool. But I don't know. I mean, this is going to take up a good chunk of the beginning of the year for Lucasfilm. February
Yeah.
all the way to May 1st. That's kind of good for us Star Wars fans because it keeps us busy just a little bit, but I don't think it's enough to like satisfy the fandom. This
No.
is what I've always said about Bad Batch is it's a keep them busy kind of show. Of
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
let's just say we're putting something out. The core fandom gets a little
You
thing
know,
to watch, but it's not the
right.
Mandalorian.
And it's like, listen, I don't fault people who really enjoy it, right? There are people out there that really like it and they're excited about it and they're talking on Twitter. Oh my God, it's cool. Cool. I really don't care that much. I'm going to watch it, but I'm not like super excited about it. But, but then you get like this kind of like, well, why you even care about Star Wars if you're going to just talk shit? It's like, guy, you like it. That's great. Why you got to try to make me like it? It's it's not necessary. Trying to make it sound like I'm not a fan because I don't want to watch it is just as bad as me saying you're not a fan because you want to watch it. It's like, come on, man. It's not that big of a fucking deal. Okay, it's just not.
And that's the thing too is that it's just not that great of a series. So it feels like a bad faith argument when you hear some of these people who are like, "Oh, this is amazing Star Wars."
They're making more
like,
of it than it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the thing where it's like, all right, we do have to have some standards at some point. You are allowed to say, hey, while I like aspects of the show, there's a lot wrong with it or something.
Just
like
be
that.
happy. You're getting Star Wars. No.
Am I though? Is this really Star Wars? Is this all you want?
How many Star Wars fans were excited when that holiday special came out? Yay, Star Wars. No.
And they never made another one again because
exactly.
That's the thing I've always said with Star Wars fans over the past couple years is they just become so content with like bad quality content, and they're just like, oh, well, maybe it's not everything I wanted, but if you don't like it, then you're not a fan, or you just want to be a hater. And it's like, dude, like, come on, like I actually want good quality content. When I get
why you even watch it if you're just going to hate on it? Because I want to watch it and see if there's a reason to, or if there's a reason to like it. I mean, why? Because I'm a fan. That's why.
I watched it because I am a fan, and then after watching it, I decided it wasn't good. I mean, the same thing with Kenobi. Of people like being like, "Oh my god, like that show was really good. You guys remember that?" It's like, no, it wasn't. Like I saw that at Celebration. Like it was not a banger of a show. Like, but Lucasfilm has had a tendency of doing that, and I think honestly, the Bad Batch it's in a particular spot because it's not like egregious like Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan Kenobi, where it's like, oh, you're taking like legacy characters and kind of anything you care about as a fan, really, and it's supposed to be new characters that you build and enjoy. But
it's like Rebels, right? Stuff. It's like Rebels, and people get upset about this too. It's like, oh, why people take Clone Wars is so much better? Okay, I'm not saying Clone Wars is peak Star Wars, compared to Rebels. But let's be honest. It helped the prequel so much because it had Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi in it. Okay, it had characters that were in the prequel movies. Main
explored
characters.
The Clone Wars, something that we've heard about since the original trilogy, like stuff that enhanced the story. Rebels didn't really enhance the story of like anything that much because it was also.
But this is supposed to help the sequels, but it's also 30 years before the sequels. So I mean, let's come on. It's not. We're not seeing Rey and Finn, in this. It's not like the Clone Wars were. We're not seeing them in this, so it's not on the same level. And Rebels is the same thing.
Bane or Fennec Shand or everything like that. That's like very small little things to bring in.
Oh, were they in the sequels? I must have missed them.
Yeah, you don't remember?
Remember?
You don't remember them in the background? The little cameo of Saw Gerrera? Like,
were they in it? Yeah. You remember?
No, no, you.
Yeah, remember Alex? Oh, I remember. Remember you.
That's a staple of the show now. I actually have people tag me out of random, be like, "Hey, Star Wars only, you remember this?"
Remember
or something like that. I very much appreciate that. I'm glad that's like my new thing is the member berries because God, do I love them. But you remember Asajj Ventress, Lunga?
Yeah. Yeah.
You remember her? She's one of my favorite people to remember.
I want to bring someone in the comments said something I want to bring here. Grievous Reborn, he said this, and we are going to talk about this. So let's that's the wrong way it moved. Here we go. He goes, I really hope that the Ventress stuff is going to be flashback because I don't want Dark Disciple to be retconned. let's be
Ooh, I don't know if
fair
that's
here
really the case.
when we're talking about this. It's not. I know people don't like hearing this because they think yes, it is. It's not retconning, right? It's the same. It's from what we're getting. It's along the same vein as Darth Maul. When they brought back Darth Maul, they didn't retcon the prequels. Okay, he just was presumed dead, didn't die. Palpatine came back, didn't retcon the original trilogy. Again, stupid. I'm not saying it's great, but it didn't retcon the original trilogy. Presumed dead, wasn't dead. That's what's going on with Ventress. Presumed dead, wasn't dead. At least as far as we know. We haven't seen it yet, but this is what all indications are pointing towards.
Well, the way they edited the trailer was that who is it? Echo and Hunter are like firing.
Yeah,
at her, like,
but that's
blocking
not
her.
what's going on. You know that. They
Yeah,
always do
that could
that
be
kind
very
of
misleading.
yeah.
But Lucasfilm was quick to put out a statement too. I think like, God, man, I gotta look it up on my Twitter now because
I mean, but
it
it's
is
just
kind
like
of prevalent.
I don't see a flashback in a third season of Bad Batch going back to the Clone Wars. You know, it's just so far back. You know what I mean? Because she died before Dooku.
It can't be a flashback though. I mean, she's got the yellow lightsaber. I mean, did she
Yeah,
have
and
that
hair, right? Well, okay.
Dark
Here's the
Disciple
thing.
book?
Here's the thing. The Dark Disciple book and this design you're seeing was actually from unaired concepts for the Clone Wars cartoon for the series that never made it into the show. Okay, so this is stuff that was supposed to happen. Even the design, her haircut, it's all in these concept art, all this stuff that they did for the show. So this was all supposed to happen in the show, and they never did it. Kind of like season 7, right? They had all the stuff for season 7, and it never happened, and then they put it. Then they made season 7. This was all supposed to be part of it, and it never came to be. So they made the book based off of that unaired concept arc that never happened in the show, and made the book off of it. So technically, yes, it's supposed to be from the Clone Wars, from that time period, from that show. Okay.
Well,
yeah.
I don't think they're going to go that route, though. I really do think she's alive at this point in the series, and they're doing that to bring in a lot of interest for season 3. I mean, look at how much fan reaction this has gotten alone. And I want to bring up the quote that they actually had from Brad Rau, I think Rau, I don't know. He's an executive producer for the Bad Batch series. He says, "We don't want to spoil anything, but want fans to know that any new storytelling with Ventress will align with the events of a Star Wars Dark Disciple." So it does sound, I mean, and they were, oh my God, were they quick about putting that statement out? That trailer dropped and that tweet was sent.
You know what she says? Dooku thought I was dead.
Yeah. No. That is what it's going to be. And that's the stuff that would annoy me because it's like, no, like Dooku, people underestimate Dooku. He actually is a very, pretty powerful Sith Lord. Maybe not like top 10 or anything like that, but compared to like Maul or even like a Kylo Ren type and everything like that, like Plagueis can beat a lot of really top tier Jedi and Sith with kind of relative ease and low difficulty, I think. And with Asajj Ventress, bro, Dooku can mop the floor with her. So it is surprising to me that he would electrocute her with his Force lightning, think that she's dead, and it turned out that she's not dead. That's one of those things where it's like he's already made that mistake once. Is he really going to repeat that?
But I mean, they retcon a bunch of stuff because Quinlan Voss, we found out in the Kenobi series that he made it out of Order 66.
Yeah, that's another thing. Is it sounded like I don't know. I thought Dark Disciple really like sealed the fate of both Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Voss. I thought they both died. I've never read it, surprisingly, because I was never all that interested in it. But I guess now I do have to read it for the first time to kind of get up to date with some of this stuff. But I don't know. It's a problem that Star Wars has always had is characters are not really dead. They just always come back eventually.
Yeah.
And it takes away a lot of the significance of those characters' deaths. But I also will say, in defense of doing this in animation, if you had not read Dark Disciple, you would have not known Asajj Ventress is supposed to be dead. It was a very odd choice to do that in a book form.
This is the thing. People are getting mad at Filoni, understandably so. Okay. Oh, here's Filoni at it again. Okay, but these are his characters, guys. You know what I mean? This is stuff he created in the Clone Wars. You know what I mean? It's like Ahsoka.
But it goes back to the argument about canon, though. It's like, even though it's his character and everything like that, like you have her die in this book, and then you bring her back in the show. At the same time, you guys are telling us how much Star Wars canon matters. It's like,
yeah, but hold on,
like it's not fair.
He is like when people joke around about how he's the second coming of George Lucas, he literally is, flaws and all. Okay,
Oh, definitely on the flaws.
Because George would have did the same thing. Oh yeah, it's great, it's great, it's great. And then he'd make something that just completely changes what happened. Well, that's my character. I'm doing what I want with it. You know, that's what.
Yeah, that's what he was gonna do with his 789. He was like, "Oh, Darth Maul's coming back," and then
right.
Oh, she is hot. Who is that?
Darth
Talon? Yeah, bring her in.
Yeah.
Bring her in. I don't care.
You know, Filoni he doesn't say it, but as a company man, he has to say the right thing. But he doesn't say it, but he has the same view of the ancillary materials of books as Lucas did. It's canon until it isn't. That's
I know, but it's the whole don't tell me it matters and then it doesn't matter. That's what. God, I think Lucasfilm went about this canon stuff all wrong from the start, because the second they made that decision of no, we're going to have a canon Star Wars timeline and it is fundamental in the they made so many decisions that have been kind of retcon or countered or don't make sense, and it creates a really big mess where it used to be
we had this argument of, on one of our shows with Goldman. Me and Goldman were going at it. I'm like, why did you go through the effort and the polarization of splitting your canon into legends and canon, okay, to make your own canon not matter?
It was about Thrawn. It was about the Thrawn and the Ahsoka series, and us as the avid book readers of the Thrawn series that we are.
Those were Disney canon books.
They were highly publicized, and I don't think Disney understands what they're going to end up doing is that fans like me and you, who we may not read every single book, we read the ones that are interesting to us, and there's going to come a point where it's like, I don't want to read these books anymore because
they're not going to matter.
They don't matter. And that's always been my problem with a lot of these kind of books in general with Star Wars. And I think it's Star Wars specifically that I've had an issue with, is sometimes when I read these, what is it? These are fiction books, right? Yeah, science fiction. Is that I'm like, this doesn't educate me in any way. All I gain is a story. And when it comes to Star Wars, some of this stuff actually isn't canon or doesn't matter anymore. So what's the point of reading it? It's not like the Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire series where it's like, no, this is a very rich and great story. A lot of these Star Wars books, I hate to be that guy, some of them really aren't that good. Like some of the way I read that Star Wars book Ronin, I think it was, based off of the Star Wars Visions thing. That was horrible.
Let me correct something. Grievous is right. It wasn't actually created by Filoni. It was in the 2003. She was in
Tarkovsky.
Tarkovsky. Yeah. He was in that one. So it's not a Filoni creation. You're correct. I do remember that.
That was a good correction. Thank you, Grievous. But I'm with you. I don't like the idea of this canon stuff not mattering and the books not really mattering anymore. And I think the timing of the Asajj Ventress one is just kind of poor, because it's like, oh my gosh, like Tales of the Jedi already did this with Ahsoka in that book, and now you have this that's also kind of seemingly retconning things. I'm glad they came out and said something about it, but it does speak to a overall narrative that people like the diehard fans are getting upset with Lucasfilm.
But here's the thing:
canon matters and it doesn't.
But here's the thing. Let's be honest, okay? Temper or be consistent with outrage. Sometimes it's like they brought back fucking Palpatine. That is the biggest one. Okay, fucking Palpatine.
That's true. That's true.
Somehow Palpatine returned. Okay, they brought back fucking Palpatine. Okay, when they brought back Maul, people were happy. Oh yeah, cool, more Maul. Yeah, let's do more Maul. They were cool about it. Now it's like, because it's oh no, they can't be doing it back. But listen, they've done it with Maul. They did it with Palpatine. It's just fucking Ventress. It's like,
yeah, but I think the problem is that with
she wasn't in a movie. Maul died in a canon Lucasfilm. Palpatine died in a canon Lucasfilm. Okay.
Yeah. But the things with those is Maul wasn't brought back into the big screen. He was brought back in the Clone Wars and not killed off immediately, but he was in Solo. Oh fuck! He wasn't. That came after. That came way after. God damn it! But they didn't follow it up with anything either, and that was kind of an issue with that. And then you look at Palpatine; they brought him back in the movie, but the thing with Ventress is this isn't something that appeals to the casual audiences. Bringing back Palpatine in Episode 9 was in a way to bring back the casual audiences of everyone knows Palpatine.
Casual audiences have no idea who Asajj Ventress is. They have no fucking clue.
So you're not just upsetting casual audience in the situation because they're not here for it. You're upsetting like the diehard of the diehard fans, the people who read the books and watch your shows. Like it's so crazy to me how this franchise can do everything at once. Disinterest the casual audiences and upset them, while also disinterest the core audience and upset them as well. The diehards of your fandom, like you're not pleasing anybody in some of these situations. Like I did not see hardly anybody. I saw a couple people go, "Oh yeah, I'm glad to see Ventress is back." But for the most part, people were like, "Wait a minute, what the fuck?" Because when you're a diehard fan, they know this stuff. Like Star Wars is taken very seriously by the fandom.
Well, so it's also a woman. It's also a woman character. It's not forced down as strong woman. She just is. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and we can't have women die in Star Wars. That would be very sexist.
But you get what I'm saying, though. She was that woman character that fans didn't blink an eye at. They liked her. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that it wasn't this.
Her focus wasn't that she's a woman, and she's just genuinely a great character.
Right. So you know why they're bringing it back? Because like, okay, well, we want more women, but how can we do it without pissing everyone off again? Oh, let's bring back the one they liked, Ahsoka, Ventress. You know what I mean? So it's like they're just.
I'm just waiting for Ahsoka to appear in season 3. I can't wait to see her finally take out Asajj Ventress and cross her arms before she does.
Oh God, here you go again with the arms crossing. Oh my God.
I remember
I may have gone too far in a few places.
That's what I'll say when they kick me out of the Lucasfilm headquarters for coming up with the sign. I like to member. Fucking assholes. What else is there to talk about?
There actually is something to talk about. Let me pull this up here.
Oh, okay. This is a good segue. Yeah, fuck Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the new Rey Star Wars quote.
Yeah, so Daisy Ridley had an interview with Variety. It's mostly about her other movies and stuff, but they did ask her about Star Wars as well, obviously. So I just kind of went forward to this because there was a whole bunch of other garbage in here that wasn't really that we don't care about. Sometimes I think about Dying is the movie that she's in. But yeah, so they asked her, and I felt was very telling. Especially the beginning line that she says, and no one's caught on it, at least I haven't seen anyone. It's like you can tell someone told her to say this. Okay, because all the negative PR around Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. Okay, let's be honest. So the question was, you're reprising your role as Rey in the new Star Wars movie directed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. How will the franchise's first female filmmaker impact the series? So they're already baiting her with this question, right?
Oh yeah.
Look at her answer. I'll give Daisy this. If she did it on her own, smart move. If she didn't, you could tell they're trying to just do a spin. The short answer is I don't know. I'm excited to do the job, but not because Sharmeen is a woman.
Oh, wow. I was waiting for you to hit me with the punchline. Oh my God.
I mean, come on.
I'm excited, dude. But not because that she's a woman. I don't give a fuck.
Like I said, if Daisy did this on her own with no coaching, brilliant. She immediately found a way.
Do coaching, whoever her coach is at Lucasfilm, whoever the PR person is to kind of help this situation, that was a good thing to say, because that does give those guys who are upset, which is fucked up. You can't be upset about a woman director, but
right. And she follows it up. Oh. She follows it up with a supportive statement, which is good. Her documentaries are amazing, which they are. No, I don't think anyone has said her documentaries are shit. Okay, no one has said that. Okay, her documentaries are good. First. I mean, I have, and I know Palpatine has watched it too. But they're real life stories, right? And they're in these areas of the world where women are abused and misogyny runs rampant in these parts of the world. The one was about the women when they were in Syria, when they were getting the acid thrown on their faces and shit. For sure, it's horrible shit. You know what I mean? So her documentaries, from a real world perspective and telling stories, are great documentaries, okay? But they're not fiction, they're not Star Wars. It's a whole different world. But at any rate, she follows it up with a very good supportive comment, like saying, oh, I'm not saying I don't like it because she's a woman either, but you know what I'm saying? I'm excited about that. Now, this is the part that really got me because we were talking about Knight's writing it, and I made the argument of she talks about injecting her activism to everything, and people, oh well, she's not, she's just a director. Knight is writing it,
That
Oppenheimer.
was my argument. Yes.
Well, according to Daisy, Charmaine, idea for the story is cool as shit. Her idea for the story. I thought Knight was writing this.
Well, maybe she pitched the idea. Lucasfilm was like, "Yeah, that's a solid idea.
Really? She gave me the rundown of the entire story. We don't even know if the script is done yet."
Well, everything's in motion. The uncertain the future is. Dark side clouds everything, Lunga. Who am I to say who is in charge? But I mean, that's one of those things. Is because I've never written or directed a fucking movie in a big like agency or Hollywood industry like this. Of like, who is spearheading the story? Is it Charmino Bachinoy or is it Stephen Knight?
At the end of the day, it depends on the will of the director. And if the director is given the reins, they take the basic script, but they mold it in the way they want it to be.
Yeah, and you saw that a bit with like Solo: A Star Wars Story with Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
Ron Howard.
They got they got the script from John and Larry Kasdan, father-son duo. Bunch of fucking idiots for doing that. I don't know why they brought in John Kasdan, but anyways, Phil Lord and Chris Miller got the script from those guys, adapted it their way, and Larry, the writer, and John, the writer, and Kathleen Kennedy as executive producer, were like, "Oh, we don't like what you guys are doing with this." So that was one of those things where it's clear that they were taking the script and doing it in their way, as opposed to what Ron Howard did, it seems, where he just did the story based off of the script that he had. And so that's the big thing with this is it's like, okay, is this really going to be a script that Charmine gets and just adapts, or is she actually going to do it the Phil Lord and Chris Miller way, where they're like, "Oh, I'm going to tell it in my version," which is the most
telling
likely
her version.
Yeah, it seems to be very obvious. Yeah. But honestly,
especially with a director with as much passion as she has, right? It's because she is a passionate director, and she's passionate about the way she wants to tell the story. And again, I'm not saying that's an evil thing, because that's ego, right? Christopher Nolan's the same way. Zack Snyder, better or worse, is the same way. We saw what happened with the DC movies. And so some of the best directors are that way, and the movies become as great as they are because of that vision of the director. The script is just a script, right? Not to put writers down. I'm a writer. I think writers need more credit, but they're words on a page. The director is what makes it come to life, right? And how those words are portrayed and how they direct their characters to do it, right? I Hate Sand could sound a lot better if the director was better at directing. But so
I will say in defense of, well, maybe not in defense of Daisy, one of the things I don't like about this and people being excited for it is she said almost the exact same thing about the Colin Trevorrow script. You remember that when like I can't remember where they were at. It might have been like SNL or something like that. But backstage, she told the story about how Colin Trevorrow told her about how he was going to do episode 9, and she was like, "It made me cry. I mean, it's so beautiful." And look what that script was at the end of the day. Like I like aspects of Duel of Fates, but it's clearly not as good as it could.
But again,
been, and it's not
how could a Duel of Fates been? Like I said, directors are the ones that actually mold those words into a vision, right? If you had someone like a Christopher Nolan or and name any great director,
but Colin Trevorrow wrote the script. I mean, it was his script, so it's a little bit more apparent that it's his story. This would be like Ryan Johnson saying it more so than if it was like a Ron Howard telling someone about Solo: A Star Wars Story. I'm just saying with this is that a lot of people don't love the Duel of Fates thing, and we thought that was such a big thing when she was crying over hearing the pitch for it. That this must have been amazing, and then it turns out it was like, it sounded just. I
guarantee you, others. If you've never ever seen Star Wars in your life and you read the script for A New Hope, you'd be like, "What the fuck is this shit?"
Oh, for sure.
Sure. Okay.
That's what happened in '75 when they started working on the thing. They're like, "George, what the fuck are you talking? What is a Chewbacca? Who? Darth what? What the fuck are you talking about, George?" I'm not gonna put a lot into this quote in terms of my excitement for this movie, because it was the same reaction she had for Colin Trevorrow's Duel of the Fates. And if anything, it makes me a little bit more nervous because, like you were just saying, that it's her story for this movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which it worries me. It worries me.
I'm not interested in Sharmino Bachinoi's story because when I look at like Rian Johnson, what he did with Star Wars, he took the sandbox, he took the characters, and he told his story. It's like it's like when you're a kid at the playground and everyone has toys, and you go, "Oh, this is Stretch Armstrong, and you know we got to do this and that with Stretch Armstrong because he stretches, and that's the whole point of the story is he stretches."
Do you want the perfect example?
The kid's like, no, he doesn't stretch. We're gonna do it my way. It's not. It doesn't
We've
work.
seen it. We've seen it in real time. We've seen it in real time. The first 10 years of Marvel, of the MCU, Feige ran that stuff with an iron fist, right? He got all these big name directors and he told them, listen, do your thing, but he gave them a list. What you need to do, but this. You can't do this, you can't do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, okay? Mm-hmm. You other than that, your vision, but you have to, which is what? World building, right? World building, character development, this stuff has to fit because it's got to work with everything else. Okay?
Yeah.
And then after that, after Infinity War, and we got into this phase 5 and stuff, Feige kind of took a step back and he handed it to directors. And we saw that from that whole thing came out where there was no storyboarders, there was no showrunners. They were just thrown to directors and writers to here, do your whatever. Okay. And the stuff we've gotten with Marvel since has been worse. Why? Because it's been these individual directors telling whatever story they want to tell, and it's not fitting in with the greater story of the universe. People are like, what the fuck? I don't even know what's going on anymore. How is it even fitting? And that's what Marvel's doing now is what Lucasfilm has been doing.
That's been the biggest issue with Lucasfilm. And instead of looking at Star Wars and saying, let's tell the story of Star Wars where it feels kind of natural. And that's a hard thing to quantify, but I do think there's an aspect with these movies and these stories, and like you just brought up with Marvel, of like there was a natural flow to the beginning of Marvel of, oh, we're all leading up. We all just, before you even saw the next movie, you just kind of knew what you were getting into. You knew where the story was going. You didn't get, like with Rian Johnson coming and doing The Last Jedi, I feel like that took away from it. And it was more so of him saying, oh, I'm not, you knew the story was going to go this way, but I'm going to subvert your expectations and change that up because you don't deserve that kind of thing. I think that Charmine is approaching this in the same way of like, when we think of the continuation of the Skywalker saga or, you know, Rey getting her own story, it's kind of like this thing where you think of, oh, there's probably a natural way where you do this and you rebuild the Jedi Order. And Charmine can come in and go like, actually, wouldn't it be amazing if, you know, all the men died or something like that? Like she just, like it just something so out of the blue where you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, that's not how I thought the story was going to go. And I was just like, oh, but that's the point. You thought that's how the story was going to go. Here's how I'm going to do the story. It's like, some things you can
and
do.
that's
that
what concerns me. I mean, I'm not. Greer's Report made a comment too, which I've kind of talked about before. He says it's kind of stupid to tackle sexism in the Star Wars universe when sexism doesn't really exist within the universe. The discrimination against aliens and droids, which I've said that in the past episode, and for the most part it is. Now there is small little things, right? We know how Twi'lek females are treated, right? They are sex slaves. And there's been lots of stories in expanded universe and in new canon where they're shown to be trafficked. You know, there is examples of it, right? But when we talk about, you know, races or alien stuff, this was unique to Twi'leks, right? It wasn't like any species, just that specific species that this happened to. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. The world was enslaved, and it was an old thing that went on long before the Empire came around. It was something, and they kind of played with stuff that people don't like talking about, because like we know, like with the transatlantic slavery, that there were some elements, some tribes in Africa that sold their own people off to it. Again, that's not me excusing it. The white people behind it were the ones running the whole thing. Let's be honest. If there wasn't a market for it, they wouldn't have anything to sell. But there were some elements in Africa that were selling their own people, and the Twi'leks were the same way. They were selling off their own people. You know, they're like, we can make money off of this. So their society in whole was kind of degenerate to begin with. You know what I mean? Which kind of led to all of that with Twi'lek. So just some examples of it, right? But we're talking about one species on one planet of a galaxy filled with people. In the general civilization of the Star Wars galaxy, okay, be it the Old Republic, the New Republic, even the Empire, it was pretty egalitarian. Women held positions that were equal to men, and there was none of this. Well, she's a woman; she can't handle it. I mean, even in the evil Empire, you know, it wasn't like that. You know, so it wasn't like this widespread thing. You know, and most people looked at the things with the Twi'leks going on and like, this is kind of shitty. You know, but it's like, well, they're their planet. What are we gonna do?
Naboo literally had a 14-year-old girl as their fucking queen. Like that's the reason Naboo is. You know, it's so beautiful, but it's ran horribly. Is that you have a child running the show literally all the time, apparently. Like, I don't know who thought that was a good idea.
My point is this. If you were making a TV show about Twi'leks and you wanted to showcase that makes sense, right? That makes sense in that microcosm, in that story. You're picking up, which is looked to be the new future of Star Wars after the Skywalker saga, the new Jedi Order, which is something that's supposed to be galaxy wide, right? It's the major story. It's not this little microcosm story on one planet, right? And you're going to start talking again. This is speculation. She hasn't said she is, but when she says she's an activism and her activism has to do with women's rights,
it seems like it's going to be something about that. It seems like it's going to be a very pro-female,
right?
Thing, which
again, pro-female is not a problem.
That sounds bad. Yes,
but her wheelhouse is about injustices towards women. That's her wheelhouse.
Yes.
Well, where are you going to get this injustice to women in the Star Wars universe where there's hardly any of it, unless you're doing a movie about Twi'leks? You know what I mean?
Well, not only that, it's going to piss off so many of the fandom because everyone, when the sequels came out, they're like, "Oh, it's a girl-female lead," and they're like the truly sexist people came out in numbers and were like, "Oh, I don't like this because there's a girl coming out and doing this," but it never felt preachy, like, "Oh, she's better because she's a woman." If this is the route they go, where it does feel like that, and it is a little bit more on the nose of, well, girls do it better, then
no one complained when Leia did it. Leia did it literally in A New Hope. She took the gun out of her hands, get out of the way, and saved them from escaping the Death Star. Leia did that. You guys are incompetent. Get out of the way.
I'm sure any rebuttal to that is like, well, that's your one token girl, but you know that's the only female representation we've ever had.
You're pretty short for a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
You know,
she was. I mean, come character. On. I mean,
she was a great character, and Carrie Fisher, God bless her crazy ass head, because that's what made it work. She was a little goofy.
Oh yeah, little goofy. I mean? Yo, you know how many Carrie Fisher stories I've heard through the years from people who have, partied with her or something like that. Woman was crazy, and good for her. She was quite the.
I was telling my wife about how I go. She was 18 when she did Star Wars, and I go and she was sleeping with Harrison Ford, who was like in his mid 30s, and she kind of giggled, and she's like, nothing wrong with that. I'm like, she was happy. I go, Carrie Fisher has no regrets. She said it was fun. that's pretty much all she had to say about it.
I mean, it's a little gross, and I mean, he was cheating on his wife of the time.
Well, that's a whole nother story. Yeah,
teenager. Yeah, I mean, very highly, highly, highly inappropriate. But it was the 70s. There was baby powder all over the room back then. I mean. And
lots of it.
They just did a new version.
And somehow they sneezed and it was just all over their face, and it was just it
was insane. A lot of everyone had a runny nose. I've heard that was a common theme. It's just runny noses, bloodshot eyes, and nobody wore deodorant.
Yeah.
God, I miss.
But yeah, again, the whole of it is failed because it wasn't even like this male gaze. Okay, yeah, the dress was a bit of a male gaze, right? And then she got out of that immediately when we got to Empire. Okay, and then the whole thing with in Jedi when she put in a dress, that was obviously a humiliation tactic, and she choked the motherfucker with a chain because of it. Okay, so I mean, let's keep some perspective here. She was not happy about that, and she killed the bitch. Okay, I mean,
I was happy about it. I wanted to be Jabba in that situation.
But you get what I'm saying, right? She, if anything, she was more ballsy than these modern female characters that they're bringing up. You know what I mean? It wasn't this like, oh, you silly you. You know, I mean, she's
got more balls than Rey, that's for sure. She didn't blink
literally
once when Alderaan was destroyed, but Rey cried because she couldn't go back to Jakku.
They're trying to escape the Death Star, and she goes, okay, I got this nerf herder and this farm boy here that don't know what the fuck they're doing. Okay, you know, yeah, exactly. You know, so you know, it was there. It was there already. You could have just followed along that same aspect, and people would have been fine. People had no problems with women in Star Wars. Period. It could have brought more women. But people were fine with when they heard about Rey. Today. People were fine about it in The Force Awakens. Again, people were fine with Rey after The Force Awakens. Yeah. So I mean, no one hated Rey.
But now they have to know that because they're men, they need to be uncomfortable. Because this is a story about women.
Well, you know, it's again, that's her that line. I'll say people got all upset about that. That was from like 10 years ago, and it was taken out of context when you think about what they were talking about. They were talking about her documentaries,
documentaries,
you know,
and everything.
And those documentaries are supposed to make you uncomfortable because you're supposed to, you know, as a man, look at it and go, shit. You know what I mean? So in that context, yeah. My biggest thing is still that one that people are still saying it's all old. It's like, bitch, no, it's from a conference in May of 2023. Okay?
Oh yeah, the activism of everything. Like I'm an activist first,
right.
The filmmaker second.
That was last year after she was hired to work for Star Wars. Okay, that's
Jeez.
Okay. Let's come on. She's literally. I don't know how much clearer. My activism is in everything I do. How much clearer does it have to be? Well, she doesn't mean Star Wars. Everything except Star Wars. It's, you know, I mean, come on.
With the exclusion of Star Wars, I'm an activist in every capacity and every project.
Right. And then again, the other argument is, well, Lucas was political. I go, stop. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying you can't have a message. We're not saying you can't have a message. But when you're saying you're an accidental filmmaker, your wheelhouse is telling real life stories, and now you're going to do a fictional one, and you're going to try to inject that in there, your activism is going to come before the story. Lucas had his activism. We know he was a fucking hippie. Okay? He was a hippie. He was borderline communist. He rather would have seen the Viet Cong win. Okay? So,
I mean, I wouldn't say borderline communist, but, you know, he was very... He was like, what do they call it? He's like a Bill Maher kind of liberal, you know.
He saw the Viet Cong to him. No, but the Viet Cong to him, though, were victims.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, for sure. But I mean, that was a big thing in the set. Like, look, I honestly believe if the little guy did not have diabetes and ended up going to Vietnam, first of all, probably wouldn't have had Star Wars. Second of all, he wouldn't be as hippy dippy liberal as he always has been.
Well, again,
you know, it would
these
be a
are,
lot different.
but this is 70s liberals we're talking about. They were a little different than now. You know what I mean? But at any rate, he did have a message, and then we saw it again in the prequels. It was an indictment of the Bush administration, right? In the prequels.
Yeah.
So, but it added to the story. It wasn't the story.
Yeah,
that's the important thing,
like
and people don't understand that nuance.
Away from it too. Well, there is
some of it did.
And it was, and people say like, oh, they're not doing political activism now, but it's always been political. I hate that thing where it's like, oh, it's not. They're not doing it, but they've always done it anyways. It's like, no, you can't say that. It's one or the other. And like you say with George, yes, he was an activist, but the story and the characters and everything came first. I really like.
He was a writer first, activist second.
Yeah, and the whole like, oh well, the original Star Wars was like the symbolism to the Viet Cong and America. It's like, okay, and it also was symbolism to Germany and
yeah.
The World War
and I wouldn't
II
even call Lucas an activist. I call him I call him an idealist. He wasn't an activist. Yeah, he wasn't an activist. An activist is, I mean, George wasn't out there fucking marching and he wasn't doing Marlon Brando on stage, having an Indian woman accept his award. He wasn't doing shit like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. He was an idealist. Okay. And yes, his ideals were left of center, pretty for the time.
He's a political
far left of center.
He's not a director.
Right. But he was an idealist. He wasn't an activist. An activist is different because you're active. It's in the word, right? You're actively putting it into everything you do. Okay. An idealist means like, oh, here's some ideas that I could use here in
even
my
look
story.
at what he did with Empire Strikes Back. He got a lot of pushback, even in the 70s, in A New Hope, of being like, hey, bro, like you had no black people in this big Star Wars movie. What the hell? He was like, all right, here's the coolest black guy of all time, probably
Yeah.
the coolest person of all time, named Lando Calrissian. Everybody wants to get with that man. And
Yeah.
it wasn't preachy. It wasn't like, oh, I'm cool because I'm black and I have swag or something. Like Lando was just a good,
And he was the
cool,
sexiest
charismatic
man on that planet, on that galaxy.
Oh,
He was just.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he was so sexy. Leia thought he was a system. The Lando system.
Yeah.
Lando's not a system. It's a
Han, and
planet.
Han was getting a little jelly. He's like, yeah, stay
Oh,
away.
fuck
Get
yeah.
away. I know you.
You see that mustache? I'd be jelly too. I'd be. Oh, those are fighting ones. Like, aren't you beautiful? You belong up here with us in the clouds, buddy. Like, you know, but it wasn't Lucas being like, see, I'm not racist. Here's a black guy. You know, we love black guy. It was like,
Yeah.
no, like, here's a cool motherfucker. And
I'll
by
give the
way,
perfect
you can't say
example.
anything now.
You want the perfect example of what people would say is activism, but it's really not. He did a good job. We know how great of a director and writer James Cameron is, right? You want James Cameron to do Star Wars.
I would love a trilogy.
Avatar is about colonialism. It is about colonialism and the displacement of indigenous people. Okay, that's what Avatar is about.
And
It's an allegory and environmentalism. People say that too. But when you think about the characters and the Na'vi and stuff, it's basically what happened when the English and Spanish came to the Americas, right? Mm-hmm. That's literally what's happening. Instead of gold, it's whatever rocks they were mining that they wanted on their planet, whatever. But it was the same thing. And you could feel it throughout the whole story. But it wasn't the story. The story was about the Na'vi. The story was about, you know, some of the people who are really liberal hate it. You're like, oh, he's a white savior because he's got to become one of them, you know, you know, shit like that.
Oh, great.
Yeah. But you could watch that movie. You get it, right? You get it, but it's not hitting you in the face with it, right? You're watching the movie and the movie has its own story that it's telling. You know what I mean? And there's an allegory there that you can associate with, but he does it well. So there's nothing wrong with messages. You can put them in there. You could be an idealist and have a message in there. Cameron obviously cares about this shit, but the movie's good. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't overwhelm it.
Telling a good story first, and
right?
Making a good movie as opposed to being an activist, because that's the thing with me. I feel like being an activist is the easy thing to do. You know, you just post a black square on your Instagram page, and you're an activist now. You know,
there you go.
But when you're a filmmaker, you really do have to tell a good story. When it comes to Star Wars, like, this is a very important legacy IP brand that if you put it in the hands of the wrong person, it can do a lot of damage. I mean, look what happened with Rian Johnson, whether you like the film or not.
Yeah.
Last Jedi did a lot of damage. This movie, like I've said before, either is going to make or break them in a lot of ways with the future of Star Wars. This should validate the sequels in a way where it's done right, where you're like, okay, you know, maybe the sequels were worth what the bullshit was because we got this kind of payoff here. Or it's going to completely ruin everything, because if it is like a, let's say, worst comes to worst, and it is a complete activism film about the trials and tribulations of women in the Star Wars galaxy, when that hasn't really been a thing we've ever thought about before, and it's only because Charmine wants it to be that way and Kathy's okay with it, Michelle Rajan's okay with it, then I think you're going to get such a toxic backlash from men who are genuinely sexist and hate this stuff, right-wingers who are just trying to grift and build on the hate and everything.
And that's the shit that pisses me off so much, is the people on the left or even the centrists, and all they hear is those fuckers because they're so fucking loud. Right?
Because if
they're so fucking
anything,
loud.
If we say anything, we get put into that category of like,
we're in that category.
And we are, and it's like, no. Like it's like, I'm sorry. Like, I have a mom, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but like, you don't wake up every day and go, oh, women are inferior. Like, we're normal men. We're not going to sit here and be like, oh, a woman can't be involved in this or that. Like, who the fuck?
And that's the problem, because here, you want to boil it down? Let's piss some people off. The problem isn't the women. The problem isn't the female characters. You could have an entire movie filled from top to bottom with female with women characters. That is not the problem. They could all be lesbians. Okay? That is not the problem. The problem is the filmmaker. Okay?
Yes.
That's the problem. It's not the characters. It's the filmmaker who doesn't give a fuck about story and says, this is what I want. This is what I want you to see. This is what I want you to see. And it's like, I just want to see some fucking laser swords.
They want to give you a
Space
message to
wizards.
take home with. They want you to come back and be like, wow, I never really thought about the plight of women in
It's
Star
the
Wars.
hubris. It's the hubris, right? And it doesn't even have to be. It doesn't have to be women. Zack Snyder, the whole thing is deconstructionism, and he almost destroyed the DC fucking universe because of it. Okay,
No, he did destroy it. That shit is horrible.
and it had nothing to do with women. People weren't complaining. Oh, there's too much women. That had nothing to do with it. It was none of the woke shit in that, right? It was just that he wanted to do what he wanted to do and fuck the legacy of these characters. Okay, that's the problem. It's the hubris of the filmmaker. Okay, and Nolan. People keep pointing to Nolan. Well, Nolan's an auteur, yes, but Nolan also told a story about one character in its own pocket of trilogies, right? And for the most part, did not destroy what makes Batman Batman. Okay, at its core, it was still Batman. Okay, it's still.
But even look what he did with Oppenheimer, where it was a retelling of this guy's story of building the atom bomb, and it's political in the way because he had affiliations with the Communist Party and everything like that. And Nolan, instead of going, okay, let me have Oppenheimer argue why the communism is good or argue why communism is bad. It really just
Because there's two sides of that story.
Yeah, but they showed it in the movie of like, no, this is kind of a double-edged sword of like, okay, yeah, this guy's very helpful, but because of his ties to communism and this being a non-communist country, is he safe with all the security clearance that he has? Like, how much reliance should we put on this guy? Like it was a very like smart way to go about that story of just telling it from a factual standpoint and how the story played out.
Fuck all the Nazis. Fuck all the Nazis we had on the program. That's not a big deal.
Well, but there's complexities with that, Yes, are they evil? But did they help us defeat the other Nazis?
The Nazis got us to the moon.
They did. Hey, I mean, look, they've made some mistakes, and there's nothing that they could ever do to make up
mistakes
for
were made.
Mistakes were made. And no matter what they do, it will never be enough. But we wanted them to do something. It was like, look, if you're going to do this to everybody in the world and put us through a second world war and kill all these innocents,
you owe us.
You owe us something. I mean, God damn it! Like I know your dollar is worth nothing, but just get us to the moon. Make us an atom bomb.
Those damn Nazis.
Yeah.
But they're pretty smart.
Don't you hate that about certain people you don't like in the world?
They had a damn monopoly on scientists.
I love what Robin Williams said when he went to Germany, and they were like, "Why do you think there's no good German comedians?" And he's like, "Well, don't you think he killed them all?" or something like that. I was like, ooh, that's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add with Sharmino Bachinoy. All I have to say is I'm still very nervous, and I do think Lucasfilm has set themselves up in the worst possible way with this. Like this is it's not as bad as it was before, where this was going to be the first movie back for Star Wars, but it's still a very bad situation because it's like this is continuing the story that you guys created with a new director, and honestly, you can't fire her. You can't have creative differences again. I mean, you might, but it looks really bad because now.
They can. They can, and they might.
Yeah, they might.
It might happen. You don't know. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them with everything that's happened. And again, and I keep pointing to this too, because as of right now, in general, I would say one of the most anticipated things coming up is The Acolyte.
Oh, okay, for sure.
By a lot of people. Leslie Headland, who one could argue is just as or more left than Sharmino Bachinoy. Okay.
Well, she was the assistant to Harvey Weinstein. Like that alone is putting a lot of bad press around her. But to her credit, and this is the PR that I like from people like her, is you know what she did? She shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
she literally. They were like,
hold on. Before someone clips you, We're not saying women should just shut the fuck up.
Oh no! Oh no! No!
That is not what we're saying.
I meant that she knew no matter what this poor girl said, it was going to be like
exactly
that a lot of people would grip. Like we know the fandom minister.
She understands the game.
That's a great way to put it. She understood the game. She got in there and was like, "Look, my track record is my track record. My belief is my belief. You can say anything and everything you want about me, but it seems like the way she's going about this is I'm going to let the work speak for itself." And
exactly.
And
in her
that's
head,
what we're having.
She could be thinking, "Man, half these fucking Star Wars fans are fucking racist and fucking misogynist."
Absolutely,
you could think that all you want. That's fine. Give me the product. Let me judge the product on the product. That's it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many like filmmakers and directors and writers and people who like morally, I like absolutely at my core fundamentally disagree with. But at the end of the day, I like Bill Burr is one of them. Like Bill Burr, I love to death. I don't agree with everything he says, like politically or his stances about.
Oh, that poor guy.
The affairs of the
world. He gets attacked from both sides. He has said it. He's like, I don't know. Am I a Nazi or am I commie? I don't know because I get called both.
Yeah, and it's funny to see that because he is someone I genuinely love and respect as a comedian, and I enjoy Bill Burr a lot. I like even his podcast and everything like that, and his wife Nia. But even though I enjoy the work, and I don't agree with everything they believe, and it doesn't change any of that though, because I can separate the two, and the work speaks for itself. I think that's what Leslie's trying to do.
But he's so hilarious because they were like the people were bitching because his wife flipped off Trump, right? He's like, "What the fuck you want me to do? You want me to tell my wife, hey, don't flip him off?"
Yeah.
Like, she can flip him off if she wants. You can flip him off. You can flip me off. You can flip off whoever you want. The fuck? What is
and compare that to like 2 years before when people found out, like someone was trying to call him racist and he was like, my wife is black. And they're like, oh, that's even more racist because you're trying to dominate her. And then she flipped off Donald Trump.
Fetishizing.
Yeah. It reminds me of that Norm Macdonald joke on SNL where he was like, oh, and according to reports, 60% of women are bad drivers and only 15% of men are bad drivers. You probably noticed that doesn't add up to 100%. That's because we have a woman do the math and everything. Everyone laughed and everything. And he's like, oh, I'm just kidding. He's like, oh, that's wrong because we hired a woman to do it. And they were like, what? And he was like, I'm kidding. We don't hire women. And then they all laughed.
Right.
Yeah. And he's like, no, we do. He's like, funny enough, that joke was written by a woman. And he was like, now you don't know what the fuck to think, you know?
Exactly.
Like that's kind of the situation.
But that's comedy. That's what comedy is supposed to do. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to, and people always don't understand what the butt of the joke is. They think the butt of the joke is the marginalized person or whatever the topic is. And you don't understand that is not the target of the joke. So like Dave Chappelle talked over and over again when he's like, oh, people think I'm picking fun of trans people. He's like, did you understand the jokes aren't about trans people? It's about all this stuff going around and the discussion of it. I'm fine with trans people, but they couldn't accept that. He's like, all right, well, fuck you then.
He definitely doubled down. I watched that special he did like a month ago, and it's actually really, really good. It's one of his better ones if you guys haven't seen it. But
I'm not talking about trans people. I'm talking about the handicapped people from now.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's that senator in the wheelchair, and he's like, I went up to him and I just said, hey, watch this. And he just walked away, and the senator was in like the audience or something like that in the wheelchair. I was like, that's fucking great. God, I love Dave Chappelle. We should have him on the show one day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because we're just big enough. We're big enough for that. We're big enough for that. Star what?
Hey, look, there's small podcasts out there who actually get like surprisingly like big celebrity interviews.
Yeah,
I would love for us to have like Star Wars. This clearly is a Star Wars podcast, but like non-Star Wars guest on to talk about this. Like who like make no sense either. Like we had Kevin Hart on, but we don't even ask him about his life or career or his comedy or anything.
Just ask him about Star Wars.
Well, I think the upcoming Rey film or something like that. Just completely out of their norm. That's a great thing.
Like, what are we talking about right now? Well, don't you remember those early interviews with Bill Burr? He's like, I don't know what the fuck Star Wars is. He's like, I think I watched it once.
He said something. He's like, yeah, Empire Strikes Back is amazing. It's a great film. He's like, but the rest, and then he's in it, and like he's great in it. I love it. But You got anything with Charmin Obad Chinoy before we wrap up this show? And call
No,
it a day?
no. And he's saying this, by the
Second
way, because
episode.
it happened completely by accident, everybody. Just, I was bitching to Star Wars Only in the Discord before a show about topics. And I'm like, really? You want to talk about the fucking Bad Batch for an hour? And I go, when I wanted to talk about Chinoy, when the shit was hot, you all said, nah, there's not much to talk about there. And now we ended up talking, how long?
I don't know. I didn't want to keep track of time on this one. I feel bad. If any of you are still watching the second worst episode, this actually might be worse than the other worst episode that we've done.
Yes. And there's just two of us. If there was 3 or 4 of us talking about this, it could have been,
Yeah, it would have gone on a little longer. We had to bring in 2 or 1 or 2 more people into our misery. Don't really want to do that to them. I mean, this is a horrible topic. But at least we did get both out of the way. Do you want to bring up the calendar so we can tell folks
your
what's coming
audio
up next?
Your audio is kind of breaking up there. I think you're back though. I think. All right, let's bring up the calendar.
All right, so next week is January 31st, how The Mandalorian changed Star Wars, going over everything that The Mandalorian did for this great franchise. February 7th, we're going to do Filoni's at Mandoverse movie. February 14th, we're not having a show. It's Valentine's Day. We're going to change up the date on this one, February 21st. Right now we have Duel of the Fates, but it is going to be the Bad Batch Season 3 premiere.
More Bad Batch, great.
Oh, yeah, no, it's going to get... This show is going to get worse before it's better, guys, all right? It's always darkest before the dawn. Give us a year and the show...
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, no, these next 3 months are not going to be great. After May, the show is going to be amazing because we'll probably get the light and everything, but
yeah,
I hope y'all like Bad Batch because it's going to be around for like 3 fucking months. I am not looking forward to that at all. So yeah, we'll update the show calendar and probably put something up on the social media so you guys can kind of have a good idea of what's coming up in the future. We're going to try to get some guests on the show as well in the next month or so. So let us know in the comment section, who you might want to see on the show. Anybody you want us to reach out to, or you want to reach out to them on our behalf and be like, hey, come join these fucking idiots over here on Chatooine.
Go spam Mark Hamill's Twitter.
Oh yeah. Like one of our hosts does.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think Palpatine knows he's not coming on the show. And if he did, I wouldn't talk about it. I would throw Mark Hamill such a curveball. I'd be like, so, Joker, you had such a big impact on that, and just not even talk about Star Wars once. But we'll be back next week for sure for the Mandalorian and how it changed Star Wars. So thank you guys very much for tuning in to today's episode. Like it if you are still listening, and be sure to tune in next week for our very special episode. We'll have a bigger panel, and it won't be such a bad episode. So thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you always.
Wow.